Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatera Vanachari Jamunatera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatera Vanachari Jamunatera Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha, Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha, Jaya Shri Radha. Jaya Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Satat Srimad is divine grace, his compound Acharya Srila Abhacharya Navinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Satat Srimad is divine grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Si Kahau Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Si Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Maya Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath-puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vena Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Our glory is to the Samon devotees. Our glory is to the Samon devotees. Our glory is to the Samon devotees. Our glory is to Sisi Gaura and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva naruttamam devim saraswati vyasa tato jaya mudhiraye naṣṭa-nāthasya svabhadrisu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhakti bhavaiti naistiki. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 44. Is that correct? Yeah. Title of this chapter is Parikshit cursed by a Brahman boy. A Brahman boy, powerful. Adya pāpam upaity ananvayaṁ. naṣṭa-nāthasya vasoḥ vilumpakāt. Parasparam ghnanti śapanti vṛñjate. paśūn striyo rthān puru-dasyavo janāḥ. Can someone try? Matajis? So word for word translation and purport by His Divine Grace, His Confound Acharya, Srila Abhacharya Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah, this is very good. You have improved a lot. That for this reason, adya, from this day, naṣṭa, upon us, pāpam, reaction of sin, upaity, will overtake, ananvayaṁ, disruption, yet, because, naṣṭa, abolished, naṣṭa-nāthasya, of the monarch, vasor, of wealth, vilumpakāt, being plundered, parasparam, between one another, ghnanti, will kill, śapanti, will do harm, vṛñjate, will steal, paśūn, animals, striyaḥ, women, arthān, riches, puru, greatly, dasyavo, thieves, janāḥ, the mass of people. Translation: due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. Please kindly responsibly repeat. Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. Purport: the word naṣṭa, we, is very significant in this verse. The sage rightly takes the responsibility of the Brahmanas as a community for killing monarchical government, and thus giving an opportunity to the so-called democrats, who are generally plunderers of the wealth of the state subjects. The so-called democrats capture the administrative machine without assuming responsibility for the prosperous condition of the citizens. Everyone captures the post of for personal gratification, and thus, instead of one king, a number of irresponsible kings grow up to tax the citizens. It is foretold herein that in the absence of good monarchical government, everyone will be the cause of disturbance for others by plundering riches, animals, women, etc. Saksur Militam, Yena Tasmai, Si Gurve Maha, Sichetayam Anombistam, Starfetam, Yena Brutale, Swayam Rupam Kadamayam, Dadati Swa Padantikam, Vandisi Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahodito, Budodaya Puspavanto, Chitu Chanda Tamanda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Si Advaita Katarara, Sivasadi Sagora Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutali, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanama, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvisesa Sonyavadi, Pasatya Disatarine. Panchakalpatari Vyacha, Kripasundabhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavibhyo. So, the text of today is very touchy to me because in the purport proper is just very graphic in touching on salient issues that are prevalent in modern society. And so what is transparent in the world today, based on Prabhupada's elucidation in the purport, is something that has been predicted in the Bhagavatam. It has been predicted in the Bhagavatam. And so the predictions of the sages, it's difficult to evade them, except with massive, pious merit. But in our present era, we're not so much inclined in accumulating pious merit by dint of pious dispositions or spiritual cultivation or devotional cultivation. So we find that there are so many calamities that the world is being subjected to, and sometimes the people are thinking that, when they form different unions or with different front lines, like in the United Nations, NATO, whatever, EU, or whatever, then the problems will be solved. It's predicted in the Bhagavatam. Some sins have been committed. A Brahmin has caused the king to die. A Brahmin has caused, the son of a Brahmin has caused the king to die. And the point is, modern day society, we're not very reflective. We don't go back to think about the root cause of a problem. We try to deal with the symptoms of the problem. If you go even to see to see a doctor, essentially they deal with the symptoms of the problem. So, if the root cause of the problem is not addressed, it becomes difficult that we become free from the calamities that have been that the world has been subjected to. So, but then the good thing here is that the sage is basically accepting responsibility. Accepting responsibility. When we do something, we should not pass the buck. We should accept we should accept responsibility. Everything we do, there's got to be some reactions. And so, the curse of the king essentially implies the termination of monarchical regimes. And so the sage had mentioned that we are responsible for the ill omens of the future. The causing of a king to die, that is not part of sustainability. Sustainability here implies when you do something that is for the good of the yet to be born generations. So when we plant coconut, for instance, we should not expect to harvest mango. A coconut tree will develop. And so all of the bad situations that are transpiring are due to the fact that mankind has been involved in so much of atrocities against nature, against other human beings. Now, our family system is so insecure. Our women are so insecure and unprotected. Our children are so insecure and unprotected. Our elders are so insecure and unprotected. There are so many cases of even the people who say they want, they are trying to involve themselves in some operations that will bring about peace. The women become the victim of the circumstance. They rape the women. And this happens each time there is a special force, either from the United Nations, whatever, for peacekeeping. The soldiers, they rape. And it's like in every war, the women become the victims. So, the Brahmins have to accept responsibility. A Brahmin has caused the disarray. A Brahmin is the root cause of the disruptions in society. And therefore, it is important for us to understand that when there has to be a government in place. And the monarchical system that Prabhupada is emphasizing here is not just some king. It's talking about a responsible king. And that responsible king means a Raja Rishi. A king who could direct the affairs of his constituency or of the citizens towards devotional culture, towards alignment with the supreme goal. Otherwise, we still have some kings on the planet now. But they are after conquest and aggrandizement. Aggrandizement here means trying to boost your status, either your social status, your monetary status, or whatever, political status. So we still have kings, but the kings are irresponsible. They are not Raja Rishis. They are not responsible enough to facilitate the extrication of the citizens from the cycle of birth and death. And so the Bhagavatam warns that one should not become a leader. One should not be a teacher, a parent, a spiritual master, if the person is not in a position to facilitate the extrication of the dependence from the ocean of samsara. So we have a problem. The problem is that we are assuming the positions without understanding the responsibility. Or we assume the positions with the understanding of responsibilities, but we are not capable of executing that responsibility. And the Prabhupada mentions about how the Democrats will plunder the resources of the citizens. And it's so dominant these days, everywhere. Go to the web and Google kleptocracy. What Prabhupada is referring to is technically called kleptocracy. Government by thieves for their self-aggrandizement. Have done some works on that, have published some research papers on that in the Journal of Financial Crime in England. So, and if you Google kleptocracy by Vasudev, you see some of my publications on that. It's a system of government where the people in power, they just steal. And the general mass of people, they suffer like anything. They don't have the basic infrastructures for their daily existence. So, what to do about that? We have to find means of exposing the people in power or the general mass of people to understand higher principles and values. I remember some couple of years ago I was in Croatia and I met one one guy who was aspiring to become a legislator or something like that. And then I think he won the elections, and there was a debate in their assembly on abortion. Okay, so he wrote me, that time I was still using Facebook. He wrote me about to make inquiries about the chapter and the canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that deals with that. There's a particular chapter that gives you information about embryology. So when we have people like that in power, who will make the lawmakers aware of higher principles and reactions that follow when the people in power don't enact laws and principles that will help to facilitate higher values from the citizens? Then, basically, there is something that we may call an invalid approach to issues, because the lawmakers are responsible for enacting bills or developing bills which will be passed into laws for the use of the general mass of people or for society. And therefore, when we have people who are in power, who are lawmakers, who understand the scriptures, in other words, people who are Brahmanically intelligent, intelligentsia, Brahmanical culture, they are going to be the best people to advise those in power about the nature of how this universe is governed.
and how just by becoming elected into power does not mean that you own the resources of the nation. A number of people who have stolen from the government, who have stolen from their own people, who have stolen from their own communities, who have stolen from the government coffers, will be born in the same communities as beggars. Because when we steal from nature or from God, we will pay a price for it. And everything in this world, whether moving or non-moving, they belong to Krishna. So when the so-called lawmakers or so-called legislators or so-called Democrats, when they undermine the higher principles of governance and they just follow the pattern of their whims and caprices, everyone is driven to the brink of disaster. And those are the things that modern society is facing. Someone will just distract the attention or distract the general mass of people and go into war. Why? Because there is so much of tension in the local setting. And that is a big political, strategy. There is too much of trouble in the country. Then you just declare war with some other country. Then there is some cooperation. And then that problem, the domestic problem is a little bit minimized. But at the end of it all, the person who declared the war never went to the war front. Never went. Poor people are sent there to be killed. And so the system that we have today is completely different from the system of the Raja Rishis, or of the system of the Vedic culture, where we have Raja Rishis, people who are self-realized. They are sages, but they also have expertise in governance. And when you have those, there is an integration of those two skills or those two settings, then society could be led in the proper direction and people will be happy. There will not be abuses. There will be a perfect society for perfect human beings. At the present moment, based on what Papa has mentioned here, it's just about someone struggling to get into power and take a chance to steal. I mean, in some countries, if by the time you leave your political position at the end of your four-year era, and your friends and family members, they ask you, so what is it that you steal for yourself? What can you be proud that you took away for yourself and your family? So people are proud of this. There are situations, I don't want to mention countries, but there are some countries that some political leader is apprehended in a foreign country for kleptocracy, for stealing from his country. And then somehow or other he managed to escape from jail. And then he goes back to his country. And then the community where he comes from, they go into the streets jubilating for a kleptocrat. This is how we encourage the so-called leaders of modern society to become more and more deep in their mentality of kleptocracy. It's just so rampant these days. And the Western countries, say America, North America and Europe, say specifically UK, they are major enablers of kleptocracy. They check kleptocracy in their own states, in their own countries, but they allow people to launder money from their own countries into these countries for transactions and whatever. So the society is so corrupt. We may say someone is fighting against corruption, but they themselves, they are highly corrupt. And therefore it is impossible for the person who is seriously sick to try to treat someone who has fever. So if a doctor is seriously sick, he will not muster the stamina to be able to treat someone or to attend to someone, even diagnosis. And so the Bhagavatam gives us insight about how society could be ruled. And even the Raja Rishis, they have a class of people who attend to their different departments in terms of advice. People like King Prithu, it's a practical good example that they won't even provide for their own need except the society, the members of the constituency are provided with their needs first. We may say this is too ideal and impractical, but granted that, at least someone who is in leadership position should understand that all members of his constituency are under his care. Just like a parent understands that the child and all members of the family are under his or her care. And so it is important for us who are exposed to this knowledge to be able to create some link where this information, high information regarding governance could be passed out to those who are in power. And that requires a lot of intensive qualitative preaching. I know some of the devotees, they are involved in preaching to students. But, that is for the future. The students of today are the future leaders of tomorrow. So we have an advantage because all of these young people, when they get exposed to this very culture, they are the leaders of tomorrow. And then when they are in position, they'll be able to implement what they have heard, what they have learned from the Bhagavatam in their own lives, and also try to see how they can influence other members of their cabinet in properly dealing with situations that will provoke the mercy of the Lord. So, taking responsibility will alleviate our suffering, because when we do something and then we say, well, I am wrong in this and I'm ready for the reactions, then we will not just cry wolf and get other people also to become involved in the depressive feelings. But the modern society is such that people get themselves involved in so much of wrongdoings and they cry wolf. In other words, they pretend as if they didn't know what has happened at all. And this is all due to the fact that people lack requital understanding or requital epistemology. The fact that whatever we do as leaders, in fact, the Bhagavatam stipulates that the leader takes about 1/6 of the reactions of members of their constituency. So if you are, say for instance, you are the governor of a state, you're the governor of a state, your way to hell is just so open. It's so wide. Because if six people rape 6 women, you will be prosecuted as a rapist for what you may not even know. And so the position that we're facing now as leaders, or those who are taking leadership position, is really very dangerous. And except people cultivate higher knowledge, it is very difficult to understand why we are passing through this type of difficulties and how we could rectify our situations. Therefore, it is important that the devotees make some extra efforts to be able to make this knowledge available, intensify, Sankirtan movement. And everybody, it's not just the devotees who are living in the temple who should do this. Those who are in the offices, working in the offices and in schools, we are all responsible to be able to distribute this knowledge. That is the only solution. First of all, there should be an awareness. If there is no awareness, forget it. And the awareness, we have to create the awareness. That will be done through book distribution, through preaching, and just like I was mentioning the case of the Croatian legislature, who happened to come to the temple associated with devotees, and then he became eager to become involved in politics. And when such things are happening, then we can be assured of a better situation for the future. But otherwise, what we're finding now, that we have so many square pegs in round holes, all in the name of political leaders, they're leading us towards doom. And so we have that higher responsibility to be able to educate people on how, on what they should do with their lives in terms of how to manage their manage themselves. First, if people want to even become leaders, are they able to lead themselves? Self-leadership. When you talk about leadership, self-leadership comes first. And self-leadership is the most difficult aspect of leadership. Ask me how, why? Yes? Rupa Goswami gives just some hint. Washo Vegam, Manasa Kroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Otaro Pasta Vegam, Etam Vegam Yo, Visahisa Diram, Saram Apimam, Pritivim Sasashat. If you check that text, and the purport properly mentions, if someone is able to follow this standard, you can become a global leader. So what is going on is that people don't have control. We don't have control over our senses and our mind. And we want to become leaders. Parents don't have control over their senses and their mind. And they pass the buck to the kids. See, my point of view, and you may disapprove me, my point of view is that if we are faced with difficulty, first, we should follow Krishna's instruction, tam titik shaswa. We should tolerate. When we deal with that, when we pass that test of tolerance, then when we get settled, we can address that situation with a calm mind in a loving and friendly way. Because two wrongs cannot make a right. So why I mentioned about parents? Because the family is a microcosm of the society of the nation. The family is, when we talk about leadership, it all boils down to the family. How the family is run. That will produce people with particular trait and mindset for the future. So if we have a child and then the children are born to misbehave, your child does something funny, misbehaves, and you can't tolerate your senses, you can't tolerate your anger, and you start being reactive. So leadership, we may blame the Democrats, but who are the Democrats? We give birth to them. So it is important for us to understand that the very foundation of our spiritual life is important for sustainability. The very foundation of our spiritual life. Sometimes we think we have become very advanced and we don't need the foundation anymore. No. No matter how tall a building is, the foundation is still required. Even the skyscrapers, the foundation is still supporting it. So when we have a strong foundation in our spiritual life is like we are saying, I am initiating a change, a positive change in my life. Anyone can initiate a change. How do you sustain that change? So, leadership begins with us individuals. We can't point we can't just point accusing fingers to the Prime Minister of India or the President of the United States or President of Russia or whatever. We have to take responsibility. The world is in a topsy-turvy situation. The United Nations cannot solve the problem. After the First World War, the League of Nations was established. Second World War cropped up. Now the United Nations is there, but it is not stopping any wars. So we have to take responsibility, and we have to transfer that responsibility to others that we encounter by dint of preaching, by dint of book distribution. Then and only then, when people encounter this knowledge and practice this spiritual culture, then they can have some transformation, a change of heart. Otherwise, just to go to school and learn philosophy or learn government or leadership or management is not going to solve the problem. Because you may know very well this is not good, and you do it. Oh yeah. Paśūn apina paśūti. I've seen people punished for this, and I still do it. This is the power of the mind, the power of the senses. So, what is happening globally, the foundation is, the root cause is spiritual bankruptcy. The leaders have no spiritual culture, and so there is chaos. They are stealing without understanding that they will come back to pay the price of this thievery. So, we have to caution ourselves and see how we are developing values that will help our children to become better humans. Not children who grow up and they leave the home, they graduate and leave the home, and they don't want to come back to see mom and dad. Why? Because of the way they are treated. I've seen so many cases, just too many cases of that on the web. Children who were badly treated by their parents. The parents are leaders, teachers are leaders, the guru. So we should not jump into that situation and think that everything is cool. Everything is not juicy. All right, we'll stop there. I'm sorry if I get beyond the boundary, but this is what Prabhupada basically emphasized in a purport here. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for a really powerful class. You made very important points that are relevant for the situation today, which is very grave considering the situation on the planet. There's an urgent need for raising the consciousness, and it behooves each one of us to do that, as you rightly said. That said, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gave us the principles of servant leadership. And Srila Prabhupada has already told us that this is the movement which is going to save the world and farm communities. So my question is, Mayapur is the spiritual headquarters of ISKCON. What are we doing to establish farm communities in Sri Mayapur Dham?
That's a very powerful question. Incidentally, this question is coming to the wrong person. The question should go to the management of Mayapur. But I appreciate the point that you brought it up. See, I was giving a class yesterday, on Zoom class, to some devotees in one country. They invited me to give a talk. And this is one of the points that I was emphasizing in terms of farm community. You see, we want to go to Goloka. Who here? I don't want to go to Goloka. Raise up your hand. I don't want to go to Goloka Vrindavan. Raise up your hand. So I assume that every one of you wants to go to Goloka. What are the activities in Goloka Vrindavan? Vaishya activities. Cow herding. Milking of cows. And that is what the Supreme Personality of God Himself does. You want to go to a place. If you want to go to America, you have to understand what is prevalent in America. What is the culture there? If you want to go to America, you have to understand that if you're driving a car and you're stopped by some cops, some police guy, you don't get out from your car. They will shoot you. The law is different. In Australia, when you get up from your car and then you walk to the police, that is considered being polite. In America, when you get up from your car, when you stop by a police and you walk towards the police car, they will shoot you. So, my point is, we are trying to go to Goloka, but we don't want to get ourselves immersed in the activities of Goloka. Why? The dominant activities of Goloka is Krishna and his friends taking care of the cows, milking the cows, tending the cows, heading the cows, taking the cows to the forest, in fact, taking care of the cows. Farming. That's what Mataji raised. So, I think that the management here also should see how there is more emphasis on development of farms. And in that way, we will be facilitating or helping. When I went to the Goshala, I was so impressed each time I go to the Goshala, you know. So, yes, we should be involved in some, farm projects, because all of this is been incited by Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave all of these instructions about farm communities. And so we have a big community here, so we should also cultivate some farms. And we should, in fact, be self-sustenance. So that's a very good point. And I don't know whether any GBC from Mayapur is here, but they should take note that we are feeling concerned that, the farm community development is not fully in place. Yes, thank you very much, Mataji. Yes.
Since sannyasis are not allowed to have a wife,
so what?
How do they become happy without that partner,
how do they become happy without a wife?
Cellmate, the better half? How do they become complete and happy without having that partner in life?
Did you hear his question? Can you repeat so that they will hear? The question is that since sannyasis, since Swamis, they don't have a wife, so how did they fill that gap? That's what you're asking. How did they fill that gap in their lives? Because we are social beings. We need some partners, isn't it? So the sannyasis does not have a partner. So how do you fill that gap? Yes. Our basic premium is that. Okay, let me cite this story before I move on. What is the name of that Indian lady, that famous singer? She left the planet. Huh? No. She was there during the time of the Goswamis. Yeah, Mira. When Meera went to Vrindavan at some point in time in her life, and then she said she wanted to have darshan of Rupa Goswami, and Prabhupada told this story. She wanted to have a darshan of Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami said, I'm a Swami, I don't meet women. I don't give darshan to women. So Meera responded that, I thought that we are all, females. Krishna is the only Purusa. Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami. Imagine you, a brahmachari, top brahmachari. A woman comes to challenge you like that. But this is Rupa Goswami. You were challenged by a woman. And Rupa Goswami said, you are right. We are all Prakriti. So, we are all Prakriti. Krishna is a female. This so-called physical body is just some type of embellishment. It's a cloth. And so if we understand and look at all of the Goswamis, their original forms, you find that there are some Manjari or some this or some that. So we have a relationship with Krishna. And if you understand that we are Prakriti, Krishna is the husband. Krishna is the husband. So mentally we should understand that I'm a wife. Oh yeah. What's the time there? Okay. In the absence of any other comments or questions, we'd like to draw the curtain for today's meeting. We'd like to adjourn today's meeting. Sure. And if you have questions that you're not able to ask because of the time, I don't want to take any time extra. If you have questions that you want to ask and because of time you're not able to, meet this brahmachari. He has my contact information. That's mine. Raise up your hand so that they see you. Yeah, meet him. He has my email and WhatsApp number. So you can meet him. He'll give it to you and you can send me your questions. But for now, please, I'm sorry. We have to draw the curtain. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
যেন তেন প্রকারে এভাবে সকলেই এই ভাগবতের বাণীকে